Barrier to entry again to insurance is like, dude, it's none. Like you can be flipping burgers at McDonald's one day, go pass your life insurance test. Like the barrier to entry to become an expert is really high because most people are just caught in that rat race and they're never actually working on their business. They're just working in the business and they never get up to that next level.
We got Dan Trinati on podcast. We're going to be talking more tactics, strategies, but also keeping it real and what people probably won't talk about. I don't know if you saw the Hormozy launch and then like him talk about Final Expense. That's kind of what prompted me to reach out to you because I know you ran Final Expense for a long time. I think solely doing advanced markets, right? IULs and annuities.
Yep. So you never want to tell a client that.
Yeah. You structure increasing death benefit, max accumulation, and then like income if they want to do it instead of like the level benefit, right?
90% of the time, yes.
For people like transitioning out of like more simplified issue to more advanced markets, what are mistakes that you're seeing them make to like avoid?
Not finding a mentor to link up to. They're just trying to figure everything out on their own. They're getting freaking railed because now the competition's higher. If you actually want to get to people that are, making money and help them out, you got to know.
Yeah, so talk about that. Like you obviously transition into IULs. Like what prompted you to kind of like start doing like more higher ticket IUL annuity things like that?
It's two things. One is that I was just on a freaking hamster wheel, recruiting, selling, and it's just like it was a never-ending cycle. And like you got to be freaking crazy. Don't get me wrong, you can be very successful in the skills that I learned in that side, John. You're like second to none. Like you learn a lot of good, like hardcore sales skills and just like personal skills. Going through a bunch of shit. That's really important. But I was about to leave the industry just because it wasn't like meshing up with what I wanted out of life. I was, just putting so many miles, which I know a lot of stuff now is virtual. But like, dude, I don't want to spend all day on the phones. I'd rather work with a couple clients and like serve them. Like the Alex Hormozy quote is like, solve rich people problems. They pay better. And simple as that. So I started getting to the IUL space about 3 years ago and transitioning to the annuity space. We still have a lot of IULs, but IULs and annuities now. And it's just like you don't need to run the quality of life that you can have is just way freaking better. It just aligns with what I want out of life. Just being able to run, 5-10 appointments a week and do pretty well. There's another quote. I had like Dave McKnight on my call. I wonder if it was him or somebody else who said it.
He's David McKnight's. Yeah, he wrote this book, right? The
The
Power
Power
of
of
Zero.
Zero. Yeah, and if anyone on here is trying to get into the advanced markets, I would highly recommend that book. He's got another really good book in the IUL space, Look Before You Lerp. It's a little bit more technical, but it just goes into some really good info in it. But there was someone that told me that the barrier to entry again to insurance is like, dude, it's none. Like you can be flipping burgers at McDonald's one day, go pass your life insurance test. Like no disrespect to that, but it's just so easy to get into this. The barrier of entry is so low, but the barrier of entry to become an expert is really high because most people are just caught in that rat race and they're never actually working on their business. They're just working in the business and they never get up to that next level. And when you start working the advanced market side, you can easily start clearing 50, 100 G's a month on your own pen and not have a crazy like work cycle. You have to earn that. But dude, you can close like $1 million of an annuities. There's like 70, 60, 70 G's coming in from $1 million of annuities. That could be 2, 3 clients. It could be one client on that side. So it's longer payouts. So it takes longer to start getting paid on a lot of these. It's not like you're submit a policy today, paid tomorrow. So some of these can be, 2, 3 weeks. Some of them can be 2, 3, 4 months on the back end. But if you can weather that storm, it's
huge. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And that's kind of why where the attraction comes in. It's like, okay, if you're talking about like the unit economics for like just kind of like wanting to scale a business, you look at final expense and it's like, yeah, you could get a 6x or 7x or even 10x, right? But the real like net profit on that's going to be very low because you're going to see chargebacks happen, right?
exactly.
And there's other things you got to pay for. And so it's like with what is for IUL stuff, what is like an average like ticket as far as like target premium? Because that's the thing that I've kind of like thought about is like, okay, if you structure, and we'll talk about structuring, that's another thing I wanted to ask you about, is like if you're structuring it properly, the target premium is going to be way less than like what they're actually paying in, right? So like what are you seeing as far as like a healthy size of like a target premium?
It depend a lot on age, and this is where IULs get a very, very bad rap, is because agents get paid on how much death benefit that clients are getting in place. So if you're stuffing that policy with death benefit, or just not doing the right thing for the client, or just you don't have the right training. A lot of agents that I find, they're just doing what they were told to do because that's what their person told them to do. But I'm just like, you guys are screwing over. This is like the client's financial future, and you're.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if there's not some more legislation coming out in the next 3, 4, 5 years about index products, just because you can easily screw people over, and like they can't really. It's not easy to get out of it. But if you're doing everything the right way, your payout's actually not anything crazy. It's like, let's say one of my clients is like putting like $1,000 a month. If I didn't structure it well, I could pay like 12, 15 G's off that thing. But when you structure it for proper cash value, which is most of our clients, I don't know, average target probably between like, depending on age, 3 to 6, $7,000. It just kind of depends on the age, and it also depends on the company too. Some companies, their target premiums are higher than others, but I would say between like 3 to 7 ish thousand. I would say, and it really just depends on what the age is for those clients. And what I train my client or my agents on, Johnny, yes, you're gonna get paid a lot less, but you're gonna be able to sleep at night knowing that you're putting the person in the best position.
Yeah.
And we do what's called the mom test. Would you put your mom in this type of vehicle? And if the answer is no, you don't fucking do it for the clients. Simple as that.
Yeah.
But then it builds up a lot of referrals. We do like a lot of increasing death benefits with term policies on top of that. If you just shove it with,
Oh.
if you shove an IUL just with more death benefit because they need more death benefit. Actually, I'm actually releasing YouTube, I think this week or next week on it. It's true. There's a financial advisor that wrote a policy with a massive death benefit because the client said he needed more death benefit. Well, by putting an extra 300-400K inside of his IUL, well, actually a VUL that he had, it would have cost him $100,000 versus keeping them separate. So yes, if you had a short-term policy that got him the extra death benefit, 14 G's would fall off the table just because that term goes away. But you're gonna have an extra $100,000, extra $120,000 sitting in the IUL. So yes, the term falls off, but by keeping them separate, it's much better for the client. And I know it's a little technical, but then if you have to use the living benefits out of one of them, like you get a stroke, heart attack, cancer, that kind of stuff, if you had to use your IUL that you're stuffing with cash for retirement to use for living benefits, you just got rid of a retirement account too. By keeping them
Mm.
separate, if you need to use the living benefits, you use the term policy, and then you still have the IUL for maximum cash growth.
Oh, okay. So when you're doing it, that makes a lot of sense. So you're going, I remember like you and I talking, I remember exactly when it was. Like we talked like this was 2 years ago, talking about structuring IULs because I thought about doing it then, which I should have. But it going into it, right? So you structure it increasing death benefit, max accumulation, and then like income if they want to do it instead of like the level benefit, right?
Like 90% of the time, yes. And when I first started, like I was not doing that all the time, straight up, because I didn't really know much different. And very open about it. I mean, there's people on social media that are hating on me. It was like back when I was like, yeah, like way early. Yes, I would set up a decent bit of clients on level. Level's still not bad. Yeah, by no means is it bad.
When's it right to put it on level versus increasing?
So typically, if a client's funding it like 7 years or less, to keep it really simple, if you're funding it like 7 years or less, you actually want to do level just with how the cost works and how like the death benefit's structured. There's some other scenarios in there, but to keep it simple, if you're funding it 7 years or less, you typically want to use a level death benefit
Really?
to do it
Okay.
the right way. Correct. Well, just what happens is that
Is that
the
for older people then?
it can
Or
be, yes. A lot of my older folks though, I'm writing a lot more annuities for them. So a lot of my older folks, Johnny, if they got like a lot, let's say they have 500K of cash they're trying to employ. If you were to do that inside of an IUL, you'd want to put $100,000 in, 100,000 over 5 years. So 100K a year for 5 years. Well, now it's taken that client though 5 years to get all of the money in, and if they're 55, all that money is not growing until they're 60. So that's a lot of years of compound interest that you're losing out on. Yes, it's all tax free, but there's a lot less at the end of the day. So like for that type of
yeah,
client, we're typically just going to write like a 500K annuity. So all 500K goes in from day one. They still have the
yeah,
security if the stuff falls backwards. If they need a more death benefit though, if they're also doing it for a death benefit purpose, I would write them like an IUL or a GUL that's just geared towards death benefit. That's it. And it's funny. I just did a training with all my agents on about that yesterday. It's how to do like it better for the clients, and you also get paid more by doing it that way. So if someone's putting in like, let's say they want a 500K death benefit or something like that, you shove all their money into an IUL, you're just getting paid on that. It would be a good payday, but you're putting all the money over here. If you keep them separate, you
Yeah.
can still do a 500K death benefit for death benefit purposes
Yeah.
and put the rest into an annuity. So they're actually in a much better, they'll have a lot more cash at the end of the day and a lot more death benefit as well.
Okay. And then the $500,000 death benefit, what are you writing on that? An
What do you mean?
IUL?
You can do IUL, GUL. As I get older, I typically go more towards GUL just as it's a guaranteed.
Yeah.
So it could be a little bit more expensive just because you're guaranteeing it until 90, 95, 100, 110. You're guaranteeing it's going to last until
Mm,
then. So it's going to be a little bit more expensive. But with an IUL or if the markets don't perform, where there's a big issue with the IUL, Johnny, where I fucking hate some of these. I love IULs, but some of the companies
yeah.
have all these indexes that are absolute dog shit. And so, really, any index that's not an S&P 500 index, just stay far away from. It's going to illustrate very well, but if you actually pull up the performance on any of these indexes, they're called volatility control indexes. And I don't know if you wanted me to get this technical on these
Yeah,
real
I'm
quick
down. Let's do
level
it.
stuff.
Yeah.
So the volatility control means that these indexes, they might not have a cap on it, which a lot of new agents, oh, no cap, you unlimited returns. Yes, but when the indexes are performing at negative 0.01%, doesn't
Yeah.
fucking matter what the cap is. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what the par rate is on it because the index sucks. The client's not going to see any growth on that, even though it looks sexy in the illustration. When you pull up actual data behind it, the indexes absolutely suck. And that's why typically every 3 to 4 years, all these companies come out with different volatility control indexes because, oh, now there's real data. This index didn't work out. Let's find a new one. And I don't think that's really good from the insurance and especially the agents because the agents are selling it based on
Yeah.
what's called back tested data, which is a bunch of fucking horseshit. Pardon my French. And
Yeah.
I don't like them. So typically just keep it S&P 500. So if you keep a minimum death
Okay.
benefit S&P 500, you can't really put the clients in a wrong position.
Okay. So that makes a lot of sense because I think like the counter argument that I've heard is like, oh, they need more insurance, but write a term policy to like layer that on top of that. Are you writing it as a rider or are you writing a separate policy
No,
for
typically
that?
gonna write it separate because if you put it as a rider, that can affect how the IUL actually works. You could have
Okay.
to do like a force-added premium later on, just kind of depending on the situation. It gets a bit more complex, but I always like to keep them separate. So that way, hey, if life happens, they're separate. If you need to drop one or two of them, you can drop one or two of them. Like for example, one of my clients, he just had like 5 different IUL and term policies, and they're not structured the right way. But he's paying $1,200 per month between all of his policies. It gives him no flexibility. If he misses
Yeah.
payments on any of them, how they're structured, he's fucked. And that's so what we
Yeah.
did for him is we just wrote. He's a bit older, like 57. We did an IUL for death benefit at like 550 a month to get him his death benefit, and then we did a Roth IRA at like 650 ish a month. So he's got all the cash in a Roth IRA that's still tax free, and he has his death benefit. If he's not able to make that $1,200 payment, he can just stop the Roth IRA for a couple months. There's no fees in that. There's no nothing. It's just that there's less going to the growth account, but it
Yeah.
gives him a lot more flexibility than having to make $1,200 a month for the rest of the dude's life.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. So, what for somebody in final expense wanting to transition to IULs, like where do you start? Because I think like at least how I look at it, it's advanced market, so it's like, oh my gosh, there's so many different things. How would you recommend somebody to get into it and like what like how can you start learning the product to be proficient enough to sell it?
So keeping it very simple. The first couple things I do, what I tell all my, whenever like, we have like a mentorship program, and whenever folks come on board with us, they have to read 2 books. There's more after that, but always start with two. The one that you just showed, The Power of Zero by Dave McKnight,
Yeah.
just kind of gives you a good overview how everything works. To do, I hate when IUL agents are like buy IULs. It's the best thing ever. It's just like that's no different than a Primerica agent shitting on an IUL. It's like they also sell the most expensive term policy out there, and they have no idea, which is crazy. But
Yeah.
anyway, neither of those people are right. People very far this way, neither of them are right. There's always like a middle, and Dave McKnight does a very good job at bringing everything to the middle and figuring out where does this actually fit and does it fit. There's nothing better than
Yeah.
being able to tell a client this is not a good idea for you. Because if you're doing that, yes, you're losing that sale, but that means you're gaining a lot of other sales because you know you're doing the right thing for the clients, and the clients know that.
Mhm.
But that's a great book to start out. And then another one's Money, Wealth, Life Insurance by Jake Thompson. It's like 60
Oh
pages
yeah.
long, half of them are like picture pages. Just it gives a really good overview about how money,
Yeah.
wealth, and life insurance all kind of come into play. I would always read those 2 books first. And Look Before You Learp is another good one, just to give you some like a general overview on how all this stuff works, dude. And then, dude, YouTube study. The fastest way to increase all your sales is just to find a mentor and link up with them, and they teach you everything in a fraction of the time that it's going to take you. So, like, for example, I learned everything myself, but it took me like a year and a half, 2 years to actually learn all the
Yeah.
stuff that I did through trial and error and just, oh man, like, I didn't know this. Dude, you find yourself a mentor, you learn everything in a couple months, you're gonna be making way more, even if your comp's less. That's where I hate like all the comp stuff. It's like, dude, if your comp can be 1,000%, but if you ain't selling jack shit, it doesn't freaking matter. So
Yeah.
find yourself someone that you can link up with. Yes, you got to be profitable and everything, but they're going to be able to make you a lot more profitable just by tuning in and following their lead.
Okay. And then as far as like cost to acquire, because obviously we talked about target, like what's a average or like a conservative number to be able to get on a cost to acquire? Obviously, it's going to
I would
vary per
say
lead source and things like
so. Yeah, it's
that,
going to
but
depend a lot based on the lead source. A lot it's going to depend on the lead source. We used to run ads so we do all the marketing internally, and we used to run
yeah.
ads at like 20, $30 per pop, but you're getting people that are like, oh, I want to become rich tomorrow, I want $1 million death benefit, put in 25 cents and take out $972,000. Like, so it's just no. No.
Yeah.
So like now our leads come back a lot more expensive, but they're a lot more dealing with quality
Quality.
people that typically have some more cash. So it really depends on the lead source, and it depends a lot. Just, we have some agents that are absolutely crushing it. We have others that are not doing as well. So a lot of it has agent variability in there. But I would say if you can get, again, cost per acquired client, I love that metric. I think it's a lot better than just the cost per lead, as you know that. But it also
Yeah,
depends on what the deal size is too, right?
for sure.
But I would say with what we're doing, if we can get like a cost to acquire a client, like $500, $600, and somewhere in that ballpark, you are
Yeah.
extremely profitable. Which might sound crazy, but if your
No,
average
that's
premium is
crushing.
3, 4 G's in target, that's a
Yeah, you're
pretty solid
smashing.
ROI.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's like, and what are you seeing is with retention on these, like selling them at a higher
Oh,
clip?
dude, if you're doing the right thing for these clients, they barely fall off the books. Um, if you're just selling IULs to sell it and you don't know, dude, most of our shit, Johnny, not most of it, I'd say like a good chunk of it, probably 40% of the business that comes to us are people that just got an IUL and they got freaking hustled. And it sucks. The
Mm.
agent just didn't know what they're doing. They signed them up and it's all messed up.
Like,
So
what are they buying? Like a Moo IULE or like an
it's not
Americo
even,
IUL or what?
there's a lot of simple, I don't, yeah, the simplified issue IULs, if someone's buying it for cash value and that's what their goal is, I am overriding those every single day. Like that, they don't stand a freaking chance. It doesn't matter what company it is. Like, it's just because odds are if someone's writing an IUL with a simplified issue type policy, they're also not setting it up correctly because they're just selling it. Oh, it has cash value and has a death benefit. That agent doesn't actually know how the IUL actually works.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, I would say 95, if not 100% of the time, if somebody comes in with any simplified issue IUL policy, they're getting charged back up the wazoo because their client just sat with an agent that actually knows what the f they're doing, and they
Yeah.
got put in a much better position. But if you're working with the bigger companies on the IUL space, it takes a little bit longer of a turnaround time to get the folks approved typically, but it puts them in a way better position. So as long as you're doing that extreme, if you're writing one of those other IULs, like the Mo IUL Express, I think it's a great policy just for death benefit. If you're writing at target premium, can be a very good death benefit policy. But I would never use it for cash value. Like every company kind of has their own
Yeah.
niche. So
Mm-hmm.
like when I was writing a lot of the IULE, it was for like my mortgage protection folks. When I was still like all like door to door doing that stuff, and that can be very solid for that type of client. But for clients that are putting in a lot of money, it just never makes sense. Or if clients want to use it for a cash value purpose, there's just so many better options out there that
Mm-hmm.
our retention of those, 95-ish percent, somewhere around that. So
Solid.
you might get paid like less commission percentage. That's where coming from like the MLM insurance type world, I don't care what three-letter agency it is, but they're all MLM style. There's nothing wrong about
Yeah.
that. But a lot of the agents that come from those types of companies, myself included, are all, hey, what's the highest comp? Highest comp, highest comp. Well, it doesn't necessarily matter what the highest comp is if that business ain't freaking staying on the books. So some of the
Mm-hmm.
bigger IUL companies, the comp might not be as high. And same with all, at all the other three other companies, the comp's probably not as high when you're writing the big IULs, but you're writing bigger premiums and that business is staying on the books, which is very, very important.
For sure. Um, that is huge. So what the one of the questions I had while you're saying that is like, say somebody just bought a policy that's more death benefit focused, but their real goal is cash value, really growing that. Like, how's that conversation actually look?
So you never want to tell a client that you fucked up. You never want
Yeah.
to tell a client that, right? That's not good. They took action. That's really good for them. So a lot of clients will get caught up on, oh shit, I've had this for a couple months or a year. I'm going to lose so much money if I get rid of it. So I say, hey, here's the two options, Bob. You can either, if you stick over here, yes, you would lose, or you stick over here after 15 years, you'll have $100,000 in this policy.
Yeah.
If you go with the policy that's set up for maximum cash value, yes, you will lose, $10,000 right now or whatever that number is, but you'll have $240,000 at the end of those 15 years. What do you feel is better for your situation? And then they choose. So, all like the Hermosi, all the Jeremy Minor type stuff, like you cannot tell the client what you can tell them what they should be doing, but it's better when you make it their choice to do what they should be doing. So then that client is confident that they're going to choose a better product for them. And then you just put them in a better policy. So show the client the options and then just let them choose.
How do like do does it ever come up like how do you know that like this is like worse, or like how do you know that it's like more like death benefit focused rather than cash value, or is it like do
I
they
just need to
just
know
instantly
their
trust
age,
you?
their contributions, and what their death benefit is. So if a client tells me that, typically they got 3 or 4 times as much death benefit involved. A lot of agents will write level policies. And again, there's nothing like necessarily wrong with the level. It still can be a very good option. But if someone comes to me with a level policy and they're putting in $1,000 a month and they have a level and their goal is a lot of cash value, and they're not putting extra money in above that thousand, I'm gonna overwrite that policy. Like,
So
even a client
what?
the other day, we're writing him
Yeah,
a 200K annuity. Some agent just got him approved, but he's 60. And again, 60 with an IUL for cash value, I just can't, really, in good faith, put it through the mom test and say I would ever do that for my family. Um, but he just even did his blood and urine. 50 G's a year this dude's putting in over the next 4 years. He was about to sign the paperwork. So, yes, let's go. Well, that agent probably thinks that they're getting a fat ass commission check, but they ain't. We're writing that client in an annuity for 200K and puts him in a much better position. Like, it was a North American annuity or IUL, which is a phenomenal IUL company.
yeah,
But for this person's goals and cash growth, it's not a good match, and there's a lot better options for that.
interesting. Okay. Are you seeing like when you're running, are you running annuity leads, or are those annuities just coming from IUL leads?
Most of them are just coming from IUL appointments and just training agents on how to actually find annuity money. There's some of the agents used to hate some of the older people that come in because they know like they're that hey, an IUL is not a good fit, and they just kind of kept pushing them away. Using the
Yeah,
same leads and just better training now that we have, my agents found over $1 million of annuities this month. Didn't submit all of it. It was $1 million in assets that can be moved. So the clients
yeah,
have more than that, but we found like $1 million that can be moved. So if he writes 300, 400 G's on that, they're putting them in a good spot, and he's getting good payday on the back end. But it's really
yeah,
just a matter of when you're doing the advanced markets, you're going to be as close to a financial planner without the title. So like you can't tell
mm-hmm,
clients ever to where to invest their money, but you can give them like strategic budgeting advice or like, hey, what portion should be in equities versus stock or versus like bonds or annuities. You can't tell them like what bonds to buy, what stocks to buy. That we cannot do, which is the insurance license. But it's getting really close. We got to figure out like, hey, Bob, like, what's your income gap? If you and when you retire, you got Social Security, you got a pension. How much do we need a month? Where's that gap? Is there a gap in there where you need more
yeah.
income? And it just kind of it's really positioning yourself as somebody that knows what they're doing and cares about the client and showing yourself as an expert on the back end.
Yeah, one thing that I was told, and we're kind of jumping around here, but I'm just kind of like spitballing as questions come up. So one of the things was like, hey, your fees are going to continue increasing if you do increasing death benefit. So that's why you do level. So it's like you're front loading the fees, and then it's like cheaper on the back end compared to like cheaper on the front end, more expensive on the back end. And then if
Mhm.
you keep it there, then your death benefit's gonna die out and your policy's gonna blow up.
Yes and no. For your smaller clients, it doesn't make an effing difference. If someone's death benefit's only starting at 50, 100K, it really doesn't actually matter. Where it does matter for people that have, a couple $100,000 of death benefit to start. So there's two types of fees in an IUL. You have the actual fees of the policy, and you have the cost of insurance.
Yeah.
So the fees are really just dictated. These are for the first 10 to 15 years of the policy. You have the
Mm-hmm.
fees. If you do a level death benefit, your original death benefit's about 3 times as much. So your fees are 3 times as much. So there's a lot less going into the cash value.
Yeah.
What's good about a level and an increasing it is the way that the death benefit and the cost of insurance works. So with a level death benefit, your cost of insurance, the annual knowable term that an IUL is built off of, is based on what's called the net amount at risk. So if you have, let's say, a death benefit of five hundred
Yeah.
thousand bucks, and you got 5,000 sitting in cash in your policy, the difference between the two, so four hundred
It's
ninety
four
five
fifty
thousand bucks.
five. Oh yeah,
Yep,
495. Yeah.
yep, that's what's called your net amount at risk. That's how much death benefit you need. So as
Yeah.
the level policy is getting older, that starts going a lot smaller. That difference, so it keeps the cost of insurance down. But all you need to do with the increasing policy, just when you stop funding it, you switch it to level. So that way you keep the fees way down early on and you keep the cost of insurance down later on in the policy.
Okay, so you're doing a B to A on that. Like that's how you're setting it up.
Yeah,
And then
and
at a
that
certain
it's
point,
not
yeah.
that doesn't automatically happen. So the clients still do have to make that change later on when they stop funding it.
Okay. Are the when the that happens, are the insurance companies notifying them like, hey, this is what you're structured at, or do you just need to tell the client, hey, you need to
Yeah, but
change
technically
this
you have
when
to
you
be very
stop
upfront
doing
with the
it?
client early on about the differences in how that works. So sometimes I let my clients choose which one, but again, if you're dealing with clients that are like if their death benefit's only like 50, 80, 100 Gs, always go increasing. Just because the net amount at risk is typically only going to get to 50, 60, 70K anyway, even if you left it level. So if you
Yeah.
had a higher death benefit early on, you just gave them more fees and no additional benefit whatsoever. Um, so yeah, the clients do have to make that decision. But dude, if people are putting in 1,000, 2, 3, 4,000 bucks a month, they know what the f they're doing with their money.
Yeah.
They're not just putting this in and going to forget. Excuse me, going to forget about it. That's not the type of client it is. If you're dealing with people that are putting in 100 and 200 bucks a month, sure, maybe they're going to forget because maybe they're just not as good with money yet.
Yeah.
But typically, if they're putting in 100, 200 bucks a month, dude, their death benefit's already so low as an increasing. It's as low as it can already get. It's not going to get any lower.
Yeah.
Um, so when people justify a level policy just for that purpose, I don't like it. I would, if you give the clients the option, like, hey, here's the two options, and they choose level, okay, I get it. But I would never want to just put somebody into a level policy. And dude, a level's not bad. Like it's not bad, but I want to give the client the option because if somebody was doing that to me, I'd want to have the option of making that decision for myself.
Yeah. That makes sense. Um, so are you trying to sell like I guess more annuities, or is it just like what's your thought process there? Because I
It,
know some people are like IULs focus, and then they're like, "Hey, we want to like write more annuities."
it
What's your thought process there?
just depends on what the client's goals are. Sometimes it's IUL, sometimes it's annuity, sometimes it's term, sometimes it's a Roth IRA. There's so much shit that we can do with our life
Yeah.
insurance license. You can write Roth IRAs with your life insurance license. So we do like a lot of term policies with the Roth
What are the
IRA.
commissions on those?
Oh, it sucks. It's not good at all. But
Yeah.
if you put the client in a good spot, dude, you get some extra referrals that come out of that because they truly know
Yeah.
that you're putting them in a good spot. So you might get paid a little bit less now. So what I always tell all my agents is that honest money goes a lot further than fast money. I've had agents that came on board solely just to make some faster money, and guess what? Some of them aren't here. Some of them are going through bankruptcy right now because they were shitty fucking people. So, pardon my French. And I didn't realize that at the beginning, and that's on me. And now we don't bring on anyone unless we know who they are and what they're doing because you're playing with people's retirements. And it's very, very
Yeah.
important that you guys do the right, we all do the right thing for people and, help get the name of insurance agents in a better spot because it's the people that are just doing
For
stuff for the
sure.
commissions that puts people like us, Johnny, that are doing the right things it puts us in a bad light because that, oh, okay, cool. Maybe I make an extra $2,000 up front, but guess what? I'm costing this client $60,000 in retirement just to make 2K. I would never want somebody to do that to my mom or me or any of my family or anybody.
Yeah.
So we just got to live to that standard.
Yeah, one of the things I just saw this interview recently, like, and or I've seen a lot of different things, like of people like going, "Hey, don't buy an IUL, like buy infinite banking policies," and that's like IULs don't perform, and that's kind of the thought process.
Hmm?
Yeah, what's your stance on that, or what's your thought process?
If you link up IULs to shitty indexes, they will not perform, and you'll have very, very bad clients. And so I mean, the same thing can happen with like IBC policies. If the agent doesn't set up an IBC policy the correct way, the same shit can happen on that side. So it's really
Yeah,
that matter of finding the right agents that actually know what they're doing, how to set up the IBC policy the right way with like paid up additions and that kind of stuff or term riders. If it's on the IUL, as long as you're linking it minimum death benefit max cash, you link it up to S&P 500 indexes, it's going to be solid. Where the issues are is when agents use all these volatility control indexes that are just absolute dog shit, but they look good on paper, but they're dog shit. And then yeah, you're going to have some very not fun clients or not happy clients in the next 15 years.
yeah. That makes sense because that's a thing that like even like I was looking at for myself is like, do I buy an IUL or do I buy an infinite banking policy? I think what I noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, is like infinite banking, you're going to be able to have more access to the funds earlier, but it's not going to grow as much as like an IUL would.
Exactly. So IUL, well, and that's not well. It's actually not true. And in IUL, you can there's riders and stuff on that you can have early access to cash on them. But really, what I believe, dude, if anyone's using like insurance, it's never a short term game. I don't like using an IUL policy or infinite bank policy if you're using it for the short term. I don't like it. I think there's much better ways to do that. There's a lot more risk when you're taking so many loans out from a policy so early on in that
Yeah,
policy. It just raises so many more risks that you got to be extremely, extremely diligent with that policy and always make those payments into it for it to actually make sense. Where if life happens and you can't make those payments anymore, your policy could blow up on you. So
yeah,
there's just a lot more red flags that I'm not a fan. If you're using it for long term, I like both of them. I'm just really not a fan of using it for any type of short term stuff, whether it comes to IBC or IUL. So if any of my clients are like that and they want cash now to go take loans out, I'm like, dude, just don't do insurance and put that on a high yield savings account, get some growth on it, and just take the money out and use it. And I just think it's much safer for the clients, for
yeah.
99% of them, because it just gives them a
How
lot more flexibility with what they're actually
how
doing.
long should they keep the money in there before like you recommend taking it out?
It depends how much you're going to take out. I mean, dude, if they got like 100 G's in there in the first couple of years, they take out like 10, 15, 20K. Doesn't matter. But if they got 100 G's in there and they're taking out 80, 90K, that's a lot riskier on that
Mm-hmm.
side of it. So it just really depends when they're taking it out and how much they're actually taking out at any point
Okay.
in time.
And then
So
when they're paying
I've had my
back the
policy for like 3.5 years. And I had like 80 G's in there. I took out 30K to go buy a rental house in Alabama. Like that, I'm perfectly comfortable with. But it's just if I would never want to take out 60, 70, 80K. Well, one, I wouldn't be able to because of the surrender value. But if I take out like the whole, if I got 80 G's sitting in here, I got an 80G loans against it, dude, if 1 years the indexes go backwards, so I get 0% credit, my loan balance goes up, dude, I got to pay more into that shit or get that loan paid off because now I just have a lot more. Cause like my policy could explode if I don't do that. And then I'm losing money.
So how does the payback work when you're actually paying back those loans?
Just go back to the insurance company. There'd be the contribution account and there'd be a loan account. So you would just they're two different payments.
Yeah, but like how long? So say for you, right? You pull out that 30. Are you just gonna continue paying whatever your premium was and then just add a little bit every month,
I
or
may
is
not
there
pay
a
mine
certain
off.
like?
Just I'm still contributing pretty heavily into it. Put a couple $1,000 a month into it, so I'm still contributing a lot to it. And
Yeah,
that 30 G's that I took out, it's making me an extra $600 per month on my rental property. So like, yes, I'd have a lot less growth in 10, 15, 20 years, but guess what? I'm gonna have a near fully paid off house in that time and making a lot of money from it, I'm cool with that.
Okay. What are best practices with like making the payment back on the loan?
Just depends what your goals are. Sometimes the best practice is not paying it back at all. I mean, that's the eventual goal, is to
Yeah.
not pay off the loan. I mean, if you want to keep it very simple, what I'm doing, I just pay off the interest of the loan. So that way the interest is not compounding on top of that. Um, but there's not really a set best practice. It just depends how much did each person take out. Um,
Yeah.
when did they take it out? Like in the policy, what percentage of it did they liquidate, for lack of better words? And that's how you'd want to figure out. So it's just going to change for every single person what their specific goals are for that.
For sure. So when you're doing like a financial analysis for them, when are you saying, hey, you should put more money into a Roth IRA than like putting more money into the IUL?
Depends whether, again, just really going to depend. Everything's based on like what a client is looking to accomplish. If I got a client that's 60 trying to use an IUL for cash value purposes, like, dude, it takes 7 years to really, like 5, 7 years to break even on
Yeah.
that, and now they're 67. So cool. They put in 50 G's and they got 50 G's. Woo, it's tax free. Well, no shit, because he didn't have any growth on it. And well, it's going to be loans
Yeah.
anyway. But like, do you want to make this payment for the rest of your life? Like, what's the deal, Bob? Typically, no, I don't. Okay, cool. Like, have you ever looked into a Roth IRA? Nope. I mean, is the death benefit important to you? Yes, it is. So like a lot of times we'll just do like an IUL for a death benefit, or the GUL for a death benefit purpose, and then take all the extra cash and put that into the Roth IRA. So if they're really like 55, 60 and up, typically a term in a Roth IRA or a smaller IUL in a Roth IRA will crush just an IUL for cash value.
Yeah. Okay. And then one of the last questions I had was like, what are, if you're structuring it properly, you said you're not going to get paid as quick. What are like average sales cycles that you're seeing?
Depends the company. Some company, one of them I work with a lot, and I get a lot of instant approvals. It would be, approved on the spot today, and I'd get paid like next Tuesday or next Wednesday. It just kind of depends what company. It's what some of them take. You know, with one of the companies I like to use a lot, I really love them for cash value. They're just harder to work with on the back end. But I'd say about 40, 50%, 50% of my people have to do full blood and urine, which just delays the process. With that company, on a good case, it's going to take me about 3 weeks on a good case. For some of the longer ones, it's going to, you're going to be looking at a month and a half on for some of the longer ones, or 2 months on those policies. So you
Yeah.
just, I don't, people that are going through that company, I got to make sure that, hey, there's a lot more hoops to jump through. Are you comfortable
Mm-hmm.
with that? And I got to get some good rapport with them, because if they're just going to fall off, I ain't going to go through all the hassle on my end to put them through that, knowing that they're just not going to complete the next steps that they have to do anyway. But on a good case, it can be the same week. The other, a week and a half is good. Just really depends what company you're working with.
Yeah, that's good. And then last question I had is like for people like transitioning out of like more simplified issue to more advanced markets, what are mistakes that you're seeing them make to like avoid?
Not finding a mentor to link up to. They're just trying to figure everything out on their own. They're getting freaking railed because now their competition's higher, and they're like,
Yeah.
they don't know how to talk the talk with some of these clients. But dude, you can, for lower income folks, you can sell them, and I say this like respectfully. It's just like what I've seen. Like you can sell them 100 $200 per month IUL, and you don't have to know all your shit, because they're just gonna buy. If you want to start selling some of the higher ticket clients, like, you got to know your shit. You got to have like a good head on your shoulder, and they got to trust you, because they're putting in a lot of fucking money. I'm not saying that the lower income don't have to, but if you want to close higher ticket, like, dude, they're talking to other people. You're not the only person that they're talking to. They got to truly believe that you're setting them up the correct way. And if you don't have the processes in place, you're going to get railed, and you're going to be losing a lot of money on this side. Because if you're just targeting like the lower income for IULs, it's no different than the final expense market. It's no different than the mortgage
Yeah.
protection market. It's always a churn and burn, low premiums. People miss their payments. It's going to be no different. So if you
Yeah.
actually want to get to people that are making money and help them out, you got to know your shit. And a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
just try to get into that themselves. And don't get me wrong, you can, but it makes it a lot freaking harder for you.
Yeah.
So people
Well,
that
dude,
just
thanks for coming
yeah,
on.
nope.
Oh yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on here, dude, and appreciate our friendship over the years. Our first podcast that we did ever was like almost 3 years ago, which was cool, or a little over 3 years ago, which is
That was a long
crazy.
time
So
ago.
it's cool that we're still in touch, and it's cool to see what you guys are doing. Where can people reach out or find you to be able to either join, link up with the agency, or just look to you for some mentorship?
Yeah, if anyone wants to link up, I typically don't take brand new agents on anymore. You gotta have either some cash to throw into this stuff, or know a lot about IULs and annuities if you want to get into this, just because I don't want to put
Yeah,
anyone in a bad position. But yeah, you can find me on my Instagram, just D Trinati, so DCHERNATI. Shoot me a text. If you go there, you can also see a call. But our Instagram page, if you guys just want some info, like we're putting out info on like annuities and IULs all the time. If you guys just on our 360 Financial Group Instagram page. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me on that side too. But yeah, appreciate you having me on here, Johnny. It's cool to see
of course, man.
rock and rolling here a couple years later.
Let's get it. Yes, sir. We'll stay in touch, bro. Appreciate
Good
you.
deal. Gotcha.
Chat soon.